Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 school committee meeting. We are in the EES cafetorium tonight. As always, these meetings are audio and video recorded. Call this meeting to order. We'll start with introductions to my left.
Sharon Fairbanks.
Rob Mullen.
Julie Guastucci.
Good evening, Mike Moran.
Hi, Mike Flanagan, Superintendent.
Brian McMahon.
Anthony Tenerella.
Paul Mitchell.
Becky Stanton.
Joe Messina, Business Administrator.
AJ Moore, Student Representative.
Natalie Barrow, Student Representative.
Good evening, Mark Franco, Assistant Superintendent.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will seek a motion to approve the meeting minutes draft of March 10th, 2020, the executive session, draft of April 7th, 2020 executive session minutes, and draft April 28th, 2020 school committee minutes. I will second it. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Correspondence.
Mr. Chair, in your drive tonight, you'll find two revenue reports, the March and April revenue reports. The April report shows a better picture of what the impact of COVID-19 has had on the community. I know that the town administrator waited for more information, so we're also looking forward to the May revenue report. But just for information at this point.
Thank you. Visitors, comments, and questions? I see none.
At this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take item 8A out of order and also 9A out of order.
So one.
8A out of order.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0.
So, Mr. Chair, as you know, we have Principal Ogden from Tyngsborough High School here tonight. There has been a good amount of discussion across the Commonwealth about graduation and what it could potentially look like, whether it's virtual, whether it's mini ceremonies, whether you graduate by cluster. I have to commend Mr. Ogden and his staff. They have been diligent, they've been patient, they've been responsive, and I think you're going to be excited to hear about the plans we have for graduation. And I know Mr. Ogden will be happy to answer any questions at the end. I did report to this committee at one point that graduation was going to be on Friday, July 17th, but given the advisory from the governor and the Commissioner of Education, you couldn't do an in-person graduation until the 19th, so we moved it to 2 days so that we could do an in-person graduation. So at this time, I'll let Mr. Ogden talk about the process and where we are and kind of give you an overview of graduation and answer any questions.
So thank you for having me tonight. As Dr. Flanagan said, the original schedule was Friday the 17th. In order to have an outdoor ceremony, you did have to move to the 19th. So I provided, which should be in your drive, guidelines that were shared by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And we tried to, or we have come up with what we believe is the best plan for us to have a ceremony on the 19th, the morning of the 19th. We will be going on PS Field, so this will be the first outdoor graduation in Tyngsborough. So in a year of unknowns, we might as well keep rolling with it. So we'll set up a stage there, and each graduate will sit with their family on the field. They obviously have to do social distance with masks. The guests are only open to immediate families, so we're defining immediate family as parents or guardians along with siblings. So anyone else, families will have to pre-register ahead of time, so we're going to have to do some work to go through that. But overall, that should limit the number of people, which was also a guideline provided by the Department of Ed. So we will have them sitting there. Also, obviously, we do have town officials, teachers, other people that are invited. We've worked out seating for them as well. Teachers will be socially distanced from the bleachers. Town officials will be on both sides of the stage, with the same type of setup. So we're excited to be able to have that in-person graduation. I think that's what a lot of people wanted. So it will look much like our regular ceremony. Unfortunately, we can have our band talking in the street where they haven't practiced for 4 months, and we were joking that a socially distanced band just isn't going to sound right. So I'm sure Dr. Wright can speak to that if we want to, but we don't want to. So the band won't be there, so that will be one thing with it. And then the other part is there'll be no true procession in or out. When the graduates arrive, they'll arrive with their family. We'll set a time, probably around 9:45 or so, to ask families to arrive. And I'm working on something to make it kind of a little more special when they do present, or when they do come in with their family. And it's the same as after. They'll be asked to leave the football field immediately, leave the area immediately, and head to their car. So some things are a little different, and it's going to take a lot of work from both high school staff as well as the support of the town Department of Health, town police, just to try to keep these people moving along. So, but it's kind of the gist of what it will look like.
So I think one of the things is it's important that this committee get all your questions answered right now, because Jeff does need to have a meeting with Terry Owen, who's our Water Health Director, as well as both of our chiefs, to make sure they're all on board and doing what we need to do. But we have to do things differently as well. We can't bring the stage that we have inside, outside, because that's just a wooden frame stage. So we had to rent a stage outside that's turf field safe. The chairs that we use inside for audience members are turf safe because they have slant bottoms and not direct feet, so that helps. So we are making sure that we protect the turf field while we have this event on the field. And again, I think part of the reason Jeff chose 10 o'clock in the morning is because it's July, and as you know, turf fields heat up. So hopefully we beat any kind of 90-degree weather. Hopefully.
Did you say they're going to be leaving immediately once they receive the diploma?
Not once they receive, but once the ceremony concludes.
Oh, okay. Is there a rain date?
The following morning, the 20th, yeah, Monday morning.
And pictures, they won't need pictures then.
Unfortunately, I think they take them the best they can, but they can't group up to take pictures or something like that. It's all the guidelines there.
And that's in the drive too. The guidance is in the drive from Desi as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Will there be a professional photographer at least taking pictures?
Yes, we'll still have that as usual. Yep.
Isn't it a town field?
I'm sorry, what was
Isn't
that?
it a town field once you guys finish the graduation and leave? The residents of the town can use the field, correct?
We're not going to encourage that. We're going to follow the guidance. It's a school event. It's a school event. We're getting specific guidance from Desi that we have to follow.
And we're going early in the process. That's literally the first day.
Right.
And so in the spirit of supporting our colleagues across the state, we're probably looking forward to doing the same thing. Those of us going early got to make sure we set good precedent examples, because the last thing we want to have is 2 or 3 of these go awry and have them just shut it down across the state.
So I know graduations in the past, you do the class video and the montage and all the photographs. You still going to be able to do that?
Yep, we've been able to rent the video board in order to be able to do that outside during the daytime.
I think one of the biggest things that the kids have expressed, just expressed to me, is the ability to put on the cap and gown and walk across the stage. That's what they want
As a group.
in front of their
That's what they want,
classmates. And if we can accomplish that, which it sounds like we're going to be able to accomplish that, these kids have certainly earned that and they deserve it. So I think it's great that we moved it to the 2 days, and I think it's going to be a good experience for them.
And many other schools have already started the hybrid or drive-by graduation. I'm sure you guys have seen them all over the news. So.
How are we going to incorporate the scholarships into that?
So this year for the scholarships, it is a little different. So we will recognize them. They won't be individually announced. I think everybody remembers those ceremonies years ago, and all those who wasn't recognizing scholarships to be out in the sun for 3 hours.
Yes. No,
Doesn't work for me.
Yep.
Will they be handing a diploma to the students? Will there be any?
There are guidelines on how you have to distribute diplomas.
Okay. Students still giving speeches?
Yep. So yourself, we would speak myself, Dr. Flanagan, KJ will be in one as the valedictorian, and then we have co-class presidents, so they'll be speaking as well.
Excellent. You guys have any questions? All right, make sure I have work on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to take 9A out of order.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0.
So once again, it is that time of year where we change over our student representative. Last month, we did a poll of the junior class to pick their representative, and Miss Natalie Barros was the winner of that vote, so congratulations to Natalie. Natalie is also the class president and heavily involved in student council. Are you president of student council, or is there?
There's like 5 officers.
So she's an officer in student council as well. She's also involved in athletics, so she's heavily involved in the school community, and I think will do an outstanding job. Taking over for KJ, who also does an excellent job, so thank you, KJ.
Excellent. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll go into KJ's last share the success.
I think Natalie might have something to offer at the after, right? You think KJ doesn't hit, you'll hit?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So as the school year wrapped up, each school kind of did a different approach for their transition and doing their final activities. For TES, their moving on ceremony with the 5th graders, the student family, they're going to drive by and wave the teachers rather than it being an in-person celebration, just so they can hear that social distancing. Additionally, Ms. Anderson posted a visual art exhibit on YouTube that could be watched as a replacement for the celebration of learning, so you can still celebrate different art that the students made. And then in place of TES Sports Day, they did a day of activities in which they posted over 23 different activities and presented pictures and videos and a slideshow so everyone could see what people were doing and kind of keep it united. At TMS, the teachers have been producing motivational videos and contacting their students in order to create a happier environment revolving around the curriculum. Surveys have been released to take student feedback on the distance learning methods that work for it, so they can find out which ones work the best. Tonight, work ethic awards are going to be released, and a parade will be held from 12:30 to 1 p.m. tomorrow to commemorate the 8th graders moving to high school. This will give students a chance to meet their teachers when they drive by. Probably a giant window for them to meet them, but at least see them, and also receive certificates and get their photos taken. At THS, seniors were delivered their robes and yearbooks and were prepared for their outdoor graduation, which will be July 19th. Graduates Brianna Bate and Austin Sizik underwent their graduation ceremony on Friday, June 5th, as they prepare to report to the Army basic training later this month. The annual THS art exhibit is available online this year. Information can be found on Tyngsborough High's Instagram. The June Students of the Month were announced, so congratulations to student Nia Bergeron, Tia Bagot, Madison Bogle, and Abby Hurley. Additionally, the National Honor Society continues their Not for a Cause fundraiser to raise money for the Merrimack Valley Food Bank by making bracelets in return for donations. And finally, the first online Academic Excellence Award Breakfast was hosted on May 27th and honored 18 different students.
KJ covered everything I was going to say, so.
You stole all your thunder.
Yeah, good job.
Go see you. You have come back to fall. He's done a great job all year. So, KJ, thank you very much. Congratulations. I wish you the best going forward.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, school building committee update, co-chair Tinarella.
We had a OPM interviews on last Monday or Tuesday, unanimously selected left field. They did just an outstanding presentation all the way around. We had a group of questions that we asked all 3 of the candidates that we interviewed. They answered all of our questions really in their 20-minute presentation, which was outstanding. So they have been selected, and Dr. Flanagan is working with Matt Hansen, town administrator, on bringing that forward. Hopefully we'll see some progress. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dr. Flanagan.
I would just say the next timeline for us to hit is we need to have our narrative and all the details about the entire process to the MSBA by June 17th, so that we can make a July 13th OPM selection meeting at MSBA to formally go with left field. Again, this is such a prescriptive process. We just can't say we want them and we got them. It has to be approved and blessed at MSBA. So we have some paperwork to do over the next week and a half. significant amount, and we'll get it done on time, and then we'll hopefully go in Boston on the 13th of July. So all good right now.
Excellent. This is good news. Personnel. Notification of new hires. Amber Edmonds, TES grade 5 teacher. Jacqueline Tinarella, TES special ed teacher. Allison Rega, TMS special education teacher. Cody DeVoe is a THS custodian who's resigning. Good luck, Cody. Notification of appointments. Erica Cooper, the TES math coach. Dan Holgate will be a grade 6 teacher. And notification request for maternity leave. Maggie Gauthier, the TES music teacher. Good luck to you, Maggie. Unfinished business. FY21 budget discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you know, the committee, we've had ongoing deliberations and discussions with D-Bus, and I think the conversation was, given the fact that kids have been out of school since March, what potential savings have there been? And so Joe did a cost analysis, which she's going to walk us through right now with a recommendation at the end. And I will turn it over to Mr. Messina. Mark, can you make that any bigger at all or no? It's in your drive, everyone?
It's also in the drive.
Yeah.
I'm going to work off my screen because I can't see that.
Okay.
Good luck with everybody with their better eyes than mine. So basically, what I tried to do for you tonight is to take your approximately 350 line items of budget and condense it down to a few items to discuss in terms of where some potential savings lay in your budget due to the school closings and some other things, as well as analyzing some of the other accounts that have had some concern during the fiscal year. For potential surplus line items, obviously the first two are our transportation lines, regular ed and specialized transportation, which are the vans. Many people would ask why pay the bus company for the period of time where they were not transporting our students. The Department of Ed did come back to us during a number of calls and say, you really need to look at your transportation readiness in terms of, at the time early on, if we were to go back to school during this year, in addition to being transportation ready for next year. Part of the cost for the bus company, as I've discussed to the committee before, is the cost of leasing and maintaining the buses. So I have been working with approximately 12 other districts to negotiate with to a figure as to what that transportation readiness may look like. D-Bus has a tendency to drag their heels on their side of the negotiations. My group last week changed their initial offer of 45% of the contract to 50% of the contract, with the understanding that we want this done very quickly because June 30th's coming right down the bend, and at June 30th, your FY20 budget can't be spent anymore. As usual, when we made this offer 4 days ago, D-Bus had said nothing. I checked in with our lead negotiators from Westford and Littleton this afternoon, and nothing from D in terms of where we stand with the 50% offer. So for purposes tonight, I basically looked at those two lines and said, what would a 50% settlement look like in terms of savings for your line items? So that's the first two numbers in the surplus. That's the big bus number of $116,000 and the van figure of $9,700 of potential savings after a 50% give back to the bus company for being transportation ready for us. Next line is utilities. Obviously with the building shut down for the most part from March 13th on through the end of the year, as well as some of the rate changes we've been able to negotiate and the solar panels at the high school. The utilities look to be approximately $96,000 under budget in surplus. For athletics, there's a net savings for the athletics lines of $12,000. And looking at each of your budget centers, the 3 schools and the maintenance budget, as of the end of May, they have approximately $121,000 in their line items. I would caution, and while I highlighted it in red, the maintenance budget currently has $35,000, but we are still spending out of the maintenance budget as we continue to close out May and June and get bills in for them. So looking at those 5 areas, you have an approximate savings there of $355,000. Then, much to Dr. Flanagan's chagrin, I have to flip around and look at some of the line items that are running over budget as of right now. Placements for out-of-district tuitions, we had some additional placements that weren't there when we did this budget last January, February. That's about $82,000 over budget projected at the end of this year. Payroll, after we apply $250,000 of school choice funds, payroll balance is going to be approximately $134,000 in the negative. The main reason for that number is we took 2 positions out of the SPED contracted service line and moved them into payroll. That being the physical therapist and the behaviorist. So that's the bigger chunk of that. I did net out of the SPED contracted service line to have that number look like an actual for you. But we did not have enough dollars in the contracted service line budgeted for those 2 positions. So there is going to be a payroll deficit on that line. Also for the professional development line, which includes all the work that Dr. Branco and the math team have been doing for the last 2 years here, that's about $18,000 over budget. So you look at those 3 deficit lines, that's about $235,000 in deficit. Put that against your surplus and you have a net potential savings of approximately $120,000. We do have 1 funding line waiting special town meeting whenever we may have it. That's our Medicaid funds of $129,000. And speaking with Dr. Flanagan and the unknown date as to when that special town meeting is going to be held in July, I had discussions with him and saying maybe the best thing we could do is have the school committee withdraw that article from special town meeting, which would essentially be a give back from the school committee to the town of the $129,000. If you were to withdraw that, we're looking at about an $8,800 deficit in your budget that can be adjusted with some other revolving accounts to close out the year at 0. So at this point, that would be a recommendation I made to the superintendent and to the committee would be just to withdraw that funding from Medicaid, withdraw that warrant article, and with the understanding that that's school funds that would be given back to the town.
Now, just add on top of that, I know that during the tri-board meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, they're all running together right now. It was made clear by the town administrator that he was looking for turnbacks as much as possible for every department in the town. And historically, I know that we have our own operating budget, the schools have not turned back money. But given the situation now with the lack of revenue and the fact that we have some savings because of the utilities and the bus contract, to me, it seems like a logical thing to do and would be a goodwill sign on behalf of, it's not goodwill, it's the right thing to do for the community. It's all our taxpayer money, so to me, it's logical that we do that. But happy to answer any questions. Joe, I just want to add one thing too there in terms of the professional development. Again, that was a line item we cut by $25,000 going into this budget year, which is why we're seeking to put that back for FY21. And then the 2 positions that you talk about, we're still significantly, when they came out of special ed line item contracted services, that was still probably more than $134,000 for those 2 positions. Close?
Close.
Yeah. So, and as you know, the maintenance overrun right now is because we're trying to grab as much PPE as we can for next year at an earlier rate. So we are overspending that right now to do the best we can to have everything we need. So So that's where we are. Happy to answer any questions. Mr. Messina has all his notes.
Michelle?
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
So it looks like most of the surplus is related to COVID impact. But which of the line items on the deficits are related to COVID impact?
None.
So how are we going to cover that? If COVID hadn't happened, how were we planning to cover these deficits?
So generally, when your budget is closing at the end of a year, it may necessitate a certain extra amount of school choice to close it, or other revolving accounts. I only use $250,000 of school choice funds on that negative balance because we have a balance in your FY21 budget as to what we anticipate the end of June school choice balance would be. And for purposes of FY21, I wanted to keep that number whole. And I made a comment to the superintendent a couple of days ago. I said, this is trickier than budgeting to zero, trying to budget a give back. I said, because historically we don't, and we have those other pools of revenue to deal with out-of-district tuitions, because what you're going to see in a tuition case is we might be able to hit circuit breaker a little heavier than we planned, because we know next year circuit breaker is going to be higher because our tuition line has gone up. May not be the case if the state can't fund circuit breaker in full, but it's sort of that ebb and flow of your revolving accounts and other funds that, you know, it's not unusual. I think last year's tuition line was well over 100,000 that we were dealing with for a negative. And I wouldn't say all the utilities are COVID related. I'm going to change my comment on that. Most of the utility savings can be attributed to the COVID closings. Probably about half of that actually is related to the solar panels.
Sure.
And the rates. So you probably would have had about $40,000 to $45,000 surplus in that line anyway.
Okay.
It's a balance. I say to the superintendent all the time, this is why the budget, we're constantly discussing the budget from July 1 till the end of the year. You know, I think some of the other districts locally, when they have problems that you read about, it's because somebody says, oh, we thought the budget was set. And we stick it in the drawer and you don't worry about it. You never want to turn your back on the budget, because, you know, if you weren't aware that you were going to have an $82,000 deficit in a budget line, you can't freeze the budget. Mike, I think we've had the budget frozen for spending probably beginning of December to tell the budget centers, hey, we know we have this deficit, so go a little easier in your budget lines. And Jeff doesn't like hearing that when we say, sorry, you can't, you know, never wait to spend your money, because we're going to take it back or freeze it in December. And then we wait and see how we're doing, and then we'll go back to the principals on like June 1st and say, okay, we're good, unfreeze it. And then Jeff has to scramble and try to, you know, buy supplies for the next year, and something like that. We wouldn't go back to the principals and say, go ahead and stop buying. We know we have a problem. So that's some of the things that it's there. It wakes me up at 5 in the morning thinking, what a line, you know, gee, I better check this line or that line, and that's why my hair's gray and falling out. And
Thanks, Jeff.
we're going to have an Advil budget line soon.
So my question is on the solar panels and the athletics. The solar panel contract was based on us using the power, correct?
Yes.
Are we getting, has there been any thought or talk to getting something more back for us not using any power?
So over the course of the last few months, those solar panels have actually generated more than the high schools need.
Yeah.
So we have put energy out onto the grid versus taking it in. So your utility bills for National Grid and Constellation have been zero for the high school. We are now getting checks from National Grid. It's about $300 a month.
So you are getting something?
The town is getting checks from National Grid. It was $300 for the first 2 months, and it was about $400 for the month of April. That is general fund money for the town.
So it goes to the town? not
Yes.
the schools. Okay. And the athletic budget savings, that seems a little low to me based on our costs for coaches.
So the coaching cost was less. Ms. Palumbo did have to get a piece of equipment that was unplanned for the field. So her grounds and maintenance line in athletics is actually in the negative. The other thing that the savings weren't as great on your budget side is the user fee account. We had to, we had no spring user fees to cover some of the supplies that Ms. Palumbo had already purchased for the spring. So her supply line and the grounds line were actually in negatives, which if you go to the May report that's in your drive, that we get later in the meeting, you can see those two lines were in the negative, where the coach's side was in the positive. So
And those are the things we're going to be able to use next year?
yes, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the out-of-district placements? How did that work with COVID? Did the students come home, but then they had contracts and you had to pay out? Did they do virtual learning?
So Commissioner Riley, very early on during the closure, put a note out regarding the rates that are set by OSD for tuition placements, which essentially said the districts cannot negotiate those rates beyond what the state had set. So similar to our students, these placements were educated remotely in most instances, and Commissioner Riley was very clear that school districts could not pay less on a per day basis, which hasn't sat well with the superintendents or the business administrators across the Commonwealth. There's actually been letters that have been sent to OSD and to Commissioner Riley that essentially said, seriously? Obviously OSD set the rate, but they didn't set a rate for something like this. So whether or not we see some relief somewhere down the line, that would be great. But if we see something, we'll let you know.
Am I correct to assume then, with us giving back the money for the, let's see, for the Medicaid funding, that, because it hasn't been addressed in these numbers, that any PPE purchasing that we need to do is going to be coming out of next year's budget, and we won't start trying to order materials early?
So I think part of the answer to that question is we're waiting on what the advisor is going to say we need specifically for PPE. The advisor that came out last week is specific to summer school.
Right.
And we received another email today that says, hold off, that's just for summer school. Let's get a better understanding what next year looks like. So to that end, we also qualified for CARES Act money. We chose to take that in FY21. So we are in the process of collating order. Additionally, part of my MVSA superintendent group, we are looking at collaborative purchasing together for FY21, because a lot of us have opted for CARES Act money in FY21. So we're looking at like a buying group, purchasing group, which makes sense. That number specifically right now for Tyngsborough is about 56,000. I think we'll see about 40 of it.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the timing, whether the supply is actually going to be there.
Yeah, so because we're purchasing as a collective group, there's a contact that has reached out to us and said they will get us what we need, so that's good. I was also on the phone with Durkin Company today, Representative Durkin Company today, who has us at the top of the list when we need things, so hopefully. I can't guarantee anything, obviously, but,
I understand
but we're having those conversations. Yeah. We're very concerned about the timing of it. So we've done some of this purchasing that you see here is to get us a 3-month stock. So we have a 3-month stock in all 3 schools right now of PPE, so we're ready to go. It's just going to be a matter of the ongoing maintenance. And what even that looks like, I don't even know. So,
Okay, thank you.
Long-winded answer to you, but so.
There is, I'm not sure if they could call it CARES money or not, but the state is also giving the town
right.
a figure, it's a little over $1 million specifically at this moment for PPE, and Kara McTwigan, who's the town accountant, actually reached out to us today and said, oh, can you start telling us everything you've purchased for COVID? You know, here's a spreadsheet. So, you know, anticipating somebody somewhere down the line was going to ask me this question, we started photocopying the disinfectant, the masks, the beginning of what we're trying to order. You know, the head nurse did place two very large orders of PPE equipment, most of which was back ordered.
And that's my main concern, is the supply. You know, we can plan for this to, you know, as much as we want and get ready to purchase it, but when we go to do it, is it really going to be there or not? And that's why I just think it's best to be purchasing, even on our own, as early as possible. But you said we already got you've already been doing a 3-month supply, so excellent job, thank you very much for that. And
I think MVSA coming in as a group, building up a little bit of purchasing power, that when the time comes, one of these vendors can say, hey, you have you know, how many districts are in that group? You know,
35.
Right, 35 districts. We float to the top as part of that group, hopefully.
Based on what I see in the industry, there's going to be an oversupply of at least masks and gloves, alcohol and sanitizer.
I would be very thankful if that becomes the case. You know, and I want to be hopeful on that, but you can't always depend on it.
Working with a company, I'm rewinding 2 million meters of the string for the masks.
Yeah.
He wants it in July.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Jeff? All right, thanks, Jeff.
So I guess the question is, does the committee want to move forward and make a decision about the Medicaid and say, let's have that be the turn back from the school?
I think we should, since we're not meeting until next month again.
My only thought on that is making sure at town meeting that people understand that there was money given back at the basic. So by withdrawing the article from town meeting, whether we do it on the floor, I don't know what the status is of how you, when you have to return the 120. We do it on the floor and say that you call a wash there, shows it's more of a public show.
I would tend to agree, only because I think we need to be adamant that this is only because we're doing this because we were closed, and not to give the impression that that isn't funds that we need on an annual basis, because that is a revenue line for you. You know, certainly don't want anybody to get the impression that we don't need it. I think the superintendent and the town administrator can probably best decide whether or not it should be a withdrawal.
Sure. I'd certainly be happy to draft a letter to the chairman of the board of selectmen as well as the town administrator saying, you know, by a vote of 7-0 at the school committee meeting on June 9th, this is a one-time turn back. We don't want this to be precedent setting in terms of Medicaid money. We need this. We know we need this for budget. But in light of where we are, please consider this and have that be a public document that we can put out there. Or we try to do it on the floor. That doesn't. I think the town would like to plan on having money. I think that would help them, because we had this conversation about free cash the other night, but do it as the committee wants.
I'd like to go on it now.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion not to seek the reimbursement of $129,413 out of the 2020 special town meeting in light of the impact of the COVID-19 on the town budget.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
The only comment I have is I believe Paul's question is whether we should remove the article before town meeting, and just not have it as part of the town meeting, or have it as part of the town meeting and one of us getting up and saying, I would like to see it recognized that we did give this money back for it, and that I don't know if it would be nice if it was mentioned on town floor, but I don't necessarily think that we need to do it ourselves. And I'm not sure how to do that, but it'll look like.
Well, that's
we're-
really cool.
So
I don't want it to look like we're
request,
I don't
grandstanding.
want
I can request that it say, request that the school department be $0. So they can acknowledge, why is this even here? Because part of the turn back to the school was 129, 413.
Could we put the article in with the disclaimer at the bottom that the school has withdrawn it? That way it's on the warrant article paperwork that we receive as a town.
Would you just say you can make the value $0?
We could.
So one article goes in, but it's a $0 value instead of 129.
Joe, can you write it so that it's the 120 minus the 129, we're actually have an $8,000 deficit for the warrant?
So you want to acknowledge the $8,800 deficit in addition to withdrawing the article, or?
That's what we're saying here. That's what- I don't know how to write the article, is what I'm asking.
Well, I think
It's less, to me, I mean, it's less about the article, more about the public acknowledgement of town clock.
I think it's more about the intent and the appearance. Okay, I think it doesn't really matter whether it gets mentioned on the floor or not. We're doing this to help the town. Okay, so whether it gets mentioned on the floor, whether the town administrator mentions it, whether it's the chairman of the board of selectmen, it doesn't matter. We're doing this for the town. Right? We know we're doing it, they know we're doing it. I don't really care if it gets mentioned that due to the graciousness of the school committee, we're getting, additional $100,000 and so back to the school committee. Right? That's irrelevant.
I think the school, somebody at town meeting does need to present the article, either making a motion for the article or making a motion to withdraw the article. And I think if the superintendent word crafted a statement for the school, from the school committee to be read by, either one of you or somebody on the Board of Selectmen board as to why we're doing this, it sort of gives the intent. Is the warrant article as written, motion to withdraw it, the school committee would like to acknowledge that based upon, the lengthy closure and review of, the budget, chooses to withdraw it at this time. Some sort of wordsmith like
And
that.
I agree with your point, Rob. Like, in a perfect world, you're absolutely right. We're doing the right thing. But the reality is, there are people out there. We're the big target because we're the big.
They're going to be there anyways. Okay?
Right.
Those people are always going to question our intent. They're going to question our budget. I don't care about those people. Right? I just care that we're doing the right thing.
Right.
I
I think we need to let people know that we are doing the right thing.
If the superintendent
That's
would
why
like to get up
these are
and
filmed,
say
that's why they're on
something,
TV.
if Ryan, you as the chair want to get up and say something to withdraw that, go ahead. I just don't think it's that important. So I'll leave it up to you guys.
So a suggestion is, I don't think anyone's against the turnabout. So if the committee would like me to consult the town administrator what that best looks like, I can have a conversation with that, and we can talk about the process, and improve the process on July 7th. Because I don't think town meetings happen before July 7th. I heard end of July earliest. So I could say that so if you take a vote to do that, have me, direct me to work with the town administrator process, I'll do that.
Okay. That seems fair. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Hold on. I think we need to make part of the motion to direct Dr. Flanagan to go talk to the town. We make a motion to Mr. Cinerella and specify that we're going to seek to not take those funds and direct Dr. Flanagan to go talk to Matt.
So much.
Exactly what we talked about, we did it.
So is that?
Exactly what he
But I
said.
think what I'm saying is we need to take back that vote and make the motion, a new motion,
So I will make a motion
to take back the last vote.
to take back the last vote.
Well, we haven't voted on the
We
last
haven't voted on it.
I interrupted it.
Well, we're still in discussion.
Yeah.
All right,
I think I
So I'd like to modify.
I make a motion to cancel the last motion.
Can I just modify the existing motion? I don't think we've ever had a motion discussion. So I'll second Paul's cancellation of my motion and make a new, I can't make a new motion until we vote on it.
You didn't vote on the first and second,
Correct, so I can just modify my existing motion, yeah? Yes, so I'll modify my existing motion not to seek medical reimbursement of $129,413 during the 2020 special town meeting in light of the impact of COVID-19 town revenues, and instruct Dr. Flanagan to meet with Matt Hanson, our town administrator, on the proper process.
It's gonna be one of the longest motions we've ever had.
I'll second that.
Get on, Sharon?
Get on that.
You're the second?
I'll be the second.
I was the second before. You want to take over for it? Thanks a lot. After it rudely interrupted.
Should we cancel the second?
Any discussion on the modified motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 7-0. There you go. All right. That was fun. All right. 9B, reopening task force.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. In your drive tonight, I included the task force presentation that we had last night. And I just want to do just a 2-minute overview of what we're thinking for September. I know that there's a lot of discussion about what school's going to look like or potentially look like come fall. And the key is we are waiting for an advisory right now from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, which we should have in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, which will put us in a box. It will dictate to the district 90% of what the reopening is going to look like. So to best prepare for that and to make sure that we can make it as Tyngsborough-wise and customized as possible for our district and do what's best for our kids and answer the questions of the stakeholders in the community, we've put together a task force. Now, I emailed everyone in the committee a few weeks ago asking if you want to participate in any of the committees. So basically, we have an overarching task force that has 17 members of it. There are parents on it, there are administrators on it, there are teachers on it. Ryan Cinnamon is the school committee chair. Basically, this task force, the work of this task force will be to hear from the 9 committees that are doing the legwork around what reopening will look like in the district. Of the 9 committees that we've established, we have 5 that are specific to teaching and learning, and 4 that are specific to operations and structures of a school system. So the work that we're doing right now will be over the next month or so that we can make a recommendation to the task force, hopefully by mid-July, as to what reopening will look like. And then it's my goal to have the task force be the conduit between the community and the school district to make sure parents are feeling included in this, parents have a voice in this. We're going to do a little community outreach. But the fact of the matter is we're going to be told what to do. We're not going to be influenced necessarily by Facebook comments and discussions, because there's a lot of that going on. We're going to be put in a box and we're going to do what we need to do for Tyngsborough. So that being said, I know that a lot of members here have been part of committee meetings and task force meetings, so I don't know if everyone wants to do a quick overview of where we are. Or?
So I think so far, Rob, Julie, and Becky have actually sat in meetings, other meetings. Haven't met yet.
Right.
So to start with Rob, if you guys want to give us just a quick review of the experience and sort of the overall approach.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing this.
So the subcommittee that
Yep.
you're on, can you give us a
Of the
quick-
meeting that I missed today, I've only been to one so far.
That's all right. There's only two.
I know.
We're just looking for what the experience is like, what are you guys doing? I don't want to get into the details of, what you're going through.
No, what we're discussing right now, I'm on facilities. What we've been discussing is how the buildings themselves will look, the classrooms will look, come when we get back to school, whether it's September or later. There was some debate in the one meeting that I went to, or discussion really, on, since guidelines are going to be that classrooms can have no more than 10 kids and no more than 2 adults per room. How is the setup of that room going to be? I know initially there were conversations about putting plastic dividers around desks themselves and attached directly to them. There was some discussion about whether we could put any kind of rolling plastic dividers in between these rows. And we really didn't have any conclusion at the end of that meeting for those types of dividers. I had proposed that we just go with face shields instead, so that we're not having to invest in something that we don't know will work properly on a desk and invest all that money into something like that. Obviously, we can't put anything in between the desks because the fire department would have a problem with that.
So the conversation continued off of that today, and right now it's all speculative. We have not been told what it's going to look like in the classroom. We don't know what the advisory is. Right now, I think every committee was tasked with preparing for the worst. There are 3 potential openings. There's a traditional opening, which happens all the time. There's a remote opportunity, reopening, and there's this hybrid of a few days a week or something along those lines. And I think because we've done these 2, the committees were asked to say, what would a hybrid reopening look like? So we had a little bit of conversation about that today. And today's conversation in physical plant really stayed on the nurse's offices and what we need to do to outfit those. But
can I ask what you think a hybrid is going to be?
yeah.
Is it gonna, well, I guess I'll define it a little bit better. Is it going to be based on grade? Is it going to be based on neighborhood? Is it going to be based on schools?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, how?
I think that's the point of these committees.
So those are the conversations we're having, right? So some parents, you know, and I think that's what kind of put up the task force last night. Some parents say, I can't have one kid go and the other kid home. Some parents saying, I would like to have my kids split. So I think we're going to get some kind of direction from DESE as to what that needs to look like.
That's my concern with this. Is that I'd be pulling the parents and finding out what they like.
I agree, 100%. But we can't do that until we know what it looks like. We can't ask parents to willy-nilly say, this is what we want. We have to give some kind of framework by which they have to respond to. So when we get the advice, we were fully intent on reaching out to parents to get their input. But we need to know what the structure is going to look like. Because I don't want parents saying, well, I'll send my kid 2 or 3 days a week. That might not be an option. Because we're going to have parents that are going to say, I'm not sending my kid at all. I'm sending my kid who's not going to wear a mask. Until we get what we can do, right now, we're just going to get information all over the place. What we need to be able to do as a school district is lean on that advisory. Given the outline by the commissioner, this is what we need to do. How do you feel about this? And keep it specific.
We're not anticipating it being a la carte, like as we've responded to the COVID.
That's
so,
my problem.
Right.
You know, we're worrying about what Boston tells everybody instead of trying to figure out what's best for Tyngsborough.
So we believe we will be able to figure out what's best for Tyngsborough. We just need to know what the structure is first. We're confident that with the task force, with 9 committees, with equal representation across all the stakeholders, that we'll do it. We just patiently have to wait for that to come out. If they define it at a capacity, if they say 45% or 50%, and then they give option A, B, and C for what a hybrid looks like, we'll involve the stakeholders as wisely as we can. We're confident.
Going about it backwards. I think you should be talking to the community now and tell them, well, this is what we do. And they're going to tell us what to do anyways, but at least you've done the legwork in front.
I think we're also going to get a lot of bizarre stuff in the community, as demonstrated by the Facebook pages.
It's already playing on Facebook.
Right.
So, this is what it should be. Until we know what it should be.
Yeah.
I think the approach is, we're trying to get an approach to be uniform from an authoritative figure, which is DESE, who they often call the guidelines. So guidelines that they're giving us. And then within the guidelines, they say, here's the wiggle room you get.
Right.
And then that's where these teams go and communicate and do what you're anticipating. My question, though, is more around when Mr. Mullen was talking about plastic and dividers. Is there some sort of budget that we're anticipating to have to spend on this?
So that would go directly to the CARES Act.
Okay, so the CARES Act,
Yes.
so we apply for funds.
Yes.
And we get, okay,
Yes.
just making sure. 'Cause
Yes.
We're talking about budget earlier.
No, there's definitely going to be a budget impact, but we
Yeah.
would go right through the CARES Act.
Okay.
Yes.
I feel your pain, totally get it.
I
But
don't have
I think we
I
can get
don't
ahead of
have kids in
ourselves
this
on
system.
social media, which has been fun to watch.
And I think a big part of this is going to be what the state does overall. A lot of our teachers are parents. If their kids don't go back to school, are they going to be able to return to work? our daycare is going to be open to full capacity.
And Tony, that was one of the questions that came up in the scheduling
Right.
committee, is how do we schedule teachers if we're scheduling, and their students?
Correct. So we can keep going and talk about experience on that committee?
Yeah, so the scheduling committee it was really this presentation that we have here, and then just a lot of discussion about what are some of the scheduling concerns that we think we're going to run into, and then what are some potential solutions for those scheduling concerns. And I thought it was a pretty creative approach just to draw the thoughts out of people on different circumstances that we might face, different creative solutions that we might have to employ. And while though some of these might be null or and void when we get the frameworks from DESI, it also might generate some creativity that will help us when we get those frameworks from DESI. So so far it's only been one meeting. Our next meeting is next week. And I think everybody involved was asking the right questions, trying to get some of the right bullet points out there.
I just, in closing, I would just like to thank Dr. Flanagan for all the work he's put into this. I know it's been hours and hours and hours.
He's losing his hair.
And yeah, it actually, it's with mine. But I know him and his team, Dr. Branko, have, in conversations with Dr. Flanagan, have spent hours and hours and hours and hours on Zoom meetings, conference calls, meeting with the staff and everything. So I'd just like to thank you for all the hard work that you put into this.
Yeah, it's the top conversation every day for me and who I'm talking about. Every day, parents, in a local community that I can't afford daycare. So if my kids aren't going back to school, I'm going to homeschool. Like that's another caveat. Population, we need to, so we have to think about all the populations. But.
Julie, you want to talk about your experience?
Yeah, sure. I sat in on the curriculum and assessment with Mark Brinkley, did a wonderful job. A big part of the meeting was this out-of-the-box thinking, thinking if we could do anything we wanted to do and it wasn't wrong, what would we do for the curriculum? And so we started throwing out ideas because I think, what we have to do is we're going to be thinking creatively, however it comes down. So it was a great discussion. There was a good group of administrators, teachers, it was great. So I liked the way you led it because again, we don't know yet. I mean, these things we're hearing are all rumors. Just like I'm dealing with the child care reopening, and you hear tons of rumors, and then all of a sudden you get the mandates, and then it's in your face, and you've got to deal with what the mandates are. And so you've got to have a lot of creative ideas in your head to go forward with it.
I think if I could just piggyback that, the biggest takeaway I heard from the curriculum committee was, if we are remote learning, or if we pivot to remote learning in December, January, whenever, it cannot look like it just looked. The expectations need to be ratcheted up. There needs to be more accountability on the part of teachers. So that's a message loud and clear. We've been reflective. Again, we follow DESI guidance, but we know that's not going to cut it moving forward. So what are those expectations going to look like, and how do we do it better if we have to go that way? Because we heard that feedback. We get it.
And while there's a lot of unknowns, we, from a teaching and learning aspect, we're confident that there are some serious knowns right now. We know that every child, from our most struggling learner to our most advanced student, is theoretically not where he or she would have been had we been in a typical model. So knowing that, we need to do a lot of pre-assessments and a lot of diagnostics. The teachers who are used to turning the page for September and starting again anew, they're not going to start where they were. The start of the school year is going to look, doesn't matter if you're a 50-year veteran or a second-year teacher, it is not going to look like it's looked in the past. We are prepared for that. And we're going to spend a lot of time in the summer trying to figure out what kind of diagnostic and what kind of assessments to give students at all age brackets and all subject areas to figure out where the gaps are, what they know and don't know, so that we can pick up where kids are, not where we're used to picking up. So that's a known, and that's the bulk of the work I'm going to try to lead early, so that we can then set up our curriculum and our work and our teaching and learning expectations moving forward, regardless of whether it's a hybrid or remote learning trigger that gets pulled mid-year.
Can I just ask a question about, you're going to be finding this out soon, within the next 10 days or But what about the teachers? You know, they're going to be all off all summer, so how do they prepare?
They're going to
when-
get it immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Half more on our committees.
They're on these committees, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but the teachers that aren't on the committees, the teachers that are actually doing the teaching.
They're going to get it immediately. They're going to get, they'll get it the day we get it.
Okay,
Our
but-
teachers.
But how are you going to prepare them?
So we have the curriculum council, our curriculum leaders.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll come out of these 9 committees, the curriculum council will help, lead the work in every subject area, and then they'll be pulling teachers in and communicating teachers.
So they'll have to
Oh, yeah.
during the summer.
Some people will work to develop, other people will be, at home receiving materials. It's gonna be pretty fluid.
I would also think that's going to be part of the work of the task force, is to make professional development recommendations for the summer, so we're hitting the ground running in
Yeah.
September as well.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the hard thing, because typically they don't work during the
Yeah.
summer, so
Yeah.
this is a different, and is there any implications as far as for contracts or anything with that, them working the summer?
There's a budget.
There's a budget. Yeah.
Yeah, contractually, it's $30 an hour.
Yeah, we'll use the PD
Contractual.
budget.
Okay,
Careful.
Yeah.
so that'll be part of the CARES Act.
Yes, that also qualifies for
Big
care,
cares.
work to be prepared, yes.
I mean, and I think that, if I can't say all, I will say a majority or 99.99% of teachers want to make this successful.
Oh, yeah.
They want this, because they know when they come back in September, if they're not prepared, it's going to be a poop show. It's not going to be good. So I think they have a vested interest.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah.
It is their job at come day one of school.
They've been consummate professionals the entire time,
Yeah.
so I don't anticipate them moving off of that yet.
Yeah, we had our first task force meeting last night, and I think the biggest takeaway is we have way more questions than we have answers for. Mike was asking for solutions at the end, she threw her hands up. So we understand we don't have the answers to the questions right now, but asking the questions, knowing what answers we need is the first step. So I think we're on the right track.
So we'll keep that a standing item as we go through school committee meetings if you want.
Yeah, that sounds good. We could update that.
Great.
9C, Dr. Flanagan, appointment to the Valley Collaborative Board. I will seek a motion to approve Dr. Flanagan's appointment to the Valley Collaborative Board of Directors.
I'll make that one.
Second.
To the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 7-0.
Kind of a housekeeping item, this happens every year.
Congratulations, Dr. Flanagan.
Thanks.
Finance, Mr. Messina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No bills for you tonight to sign. Mr. Mullen, as your single signer, has been coming in diligently every 2 weeks to sign bills. So working backwards from last Tuesday in your drive, there are 9 warrants that were signed last Tuesday. Warrant numbers, accounts, and amounts are in there. On May 19th, he signed 7 bill warrants. Again, warrant numbers, accounts, and amounts are in your drive. And on May 5th, 10 warrants were signed that day, again in your drive. For signing of payrolls, since your last meeting, there were 4 payrolls. In your drive are the list of payroll dates, warrant numbers, and amounts. As one of those 4 payrolls is the teacher summer pay, which looks rather large, but that represents the last payroll that they have earned and are made to represent their July and August paychecks that are given to them on the last day of school, since it's all been earned. That's a rather larger number than what you're used to seeing on your payroll lines, but that's why that is there. Also in your drive is the 3 reports that make up the May 2020 financial package. That is the school committee budget, as well as the revolving account balances at the end of May and the student account balances at the end of May. And I will leave the enrollment to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Enrollment as of June 1st, 2020. Elementary school, we have 814 students. Middle school has 388. High school has 455. 21 out-of-district students for a total of 1,678 students in the district. Our next meeting will be July 7th. So we're going to skip the school committee discussion tonight. We want to recognize Mr. Mitchell. Since last meeting, he served 9 glorious years with us.
And once we write them in,
If we did not
3
agree-
more.
I don't feel accept.
Sure, you want me to?
I know for me, when I first came on, you were a great resource, you know, a mentor as far as school committee goes. I really enjoyed my policy meetings, you know, picking on Mark. But I've learned a lot from you over the last 3 years on how to approach being a school committee member, and your leadership has been tremendous. You know, Mike and some of these other guys have spent a lot longer with you. Tony, you have anything to say?
Yeah, it's been a long time. No, as chair, Paul is my vice chair for 2 years. I called him on every single discussion, every decision I ever had to make, and you always answered the floor. You always gave me the most honest answer you could, and you made being on this committee for me very enjoyable. Unfortunately now Rob is the old guy, so we'll have to deal with that. But I just want to thank you very much for everything you've done for me personally, and for the students of Tyngsborough. You always put them first. So thank you for that.
Yeah, if I could, I'd just like to say that I didn't know Paul real well when he got on the committee 9 years ago, and we worked pretty closely together the first 5 years doing all the policy, and I learned quickly that he's never going to throw you a curveball, he's consistent, he knows what he wants, and it made me better at my job, because I knew I had to have the answers, I knew I had to pay attention to detail, and I knew that you were going to ask the hard questions, and I appreciate that. We don't always agree on everything, but you have a I opinion. We're always at least honest and upfront and collegial about it going forward. You have advocated for kids in this district without fail for 9 years, without fail. The best interest of the kids is always at your forethought. You've done a great job as a chair in 2012, I think it was. You've been on the committee for a long time. Just a solid voice of reason and somebody who gets it. So. On behalf of the entire Tyngsborough School District, thank you so much for your service. It's been invaluable.
It's not.
I'm getting indicated.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Just had a keen eye on the budget, which is always appreciated. Thank you very much for your honorable service. And if you didn't argue with you tonight, it wasn't a way to send you out.
Thank you, Paul. You've been a great police. We need at least one.
If I could just one more time. Again, KJ, thanks for the year. Your updates were awesome. Every week you came prepared. So congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
One thing I do want to say is that I appreciated the time on this meeting when I was before all this COVID happened. The whole Sun reporter asked me, why I wasn't running again. I just said it was my time to let somebody else take the seat, and my kids have gone and they've had a great education in the Tyngsborough school system, and they're all well employed and doing well. It all started here, along with me kicking their ass. Anyways, the thing that I always liked about this school committee was that everybody had the ability to talk, and all 7 of us have different viewpoints. And everybody always felt, in all the committees that I was on, that they felt comfortable in saying what they felt and what they thought was the best thing and coming to an agreement. I think that's, in these days, it's a critical thing. You've got to be able to feel like you can speak your views and have them heard. It's something that I've always tried to make sure happened in the meetings here, and making sure that everybody had a voice and was heard. And it's important to have those things happen. So hopefully you guys can keep it up. If you do want to write me in, I won't object, but you may not, you may not appreciate it. As I said. But KJ, I want to apologize to you and the class of 2020 for, it wasn't what it should have been. And you guys have weathered through, and you know, if there's something that I can do for you guys, we can figure out when things sort of get easier to do different things, give me a call, because I asked Dr. Flanagan, I've got ideas and ways to do things. The Department of Education wouldn't approve it. So, since I don't have to worry about them anymore, I'd be glad to help out the class of 2020 doing anything that might feel like should happen. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, KJ. Good luck.
Welcome now.
Welcome, Natalie. So we do have a need for executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. We will return from executive session only to adjourn the regular session meeting. This action requires a roll call vote.
In favor.
Need a motion?
Make the
I make a
motion.
motion. You make a motion.
Thank you.
Moran's gonna second.
Julie seconded.
Seconded.
Okay, great.
Rob?
In favor.
Thank you.
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Carries 7-0-0. Have a good night, everybody.